So hello folks, welcome to my real office now. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the literary analysis and looking ahead to that essay. I'm in the process of giving feedback for your discussion posts and what, I think you're gonna argue and the graphic organizers, but I'm not all the way done with it yet. So I wanted to say what I'm seeing so far. So that plot graphic organizer is not great unless the plot structure is something that you're analyzing because it's doing something interesting. But if you're just telling me, that there's rising action and falling action, we know that. Another thing to say, some people are calling these books, and I can't see why. Maybe this is about the longest thing you might have read in high school. That's sad, but I hear it a lot. So these are short stories, not books. I guess the big thing is what goes into a literary analysis. And so you're basically looking for different kinds of literary devices that create certain effects. And your argument is that this, is creating this effect and maybe kind of speculating what the reason might be. An example is like, let me see here. If, like for the plot, going back to that. So if you've got a plot that departs from the norm, where it's not falling action and rising action and all of that in a linear fashion, maybe there's a lot of time shifting back and forth, or the story's told out of order and you have to figure out what's going on, and you get information at particular points because of the way that the story's being told. Yeah, you could write a really good literary analysis about that. But or if there's flashbacks or things like that, so that's something that you could do. But this is really hard because you're so addicted to having one right answer, and plot summaries, it's really hard to get those wrong. It's kind of like the reading comprehension questions that you've probably done forever. So just use as little of the actual summary stuff as you can get away with. Just put that in only as context for your argument. So what kind of arguments can you make if you're not just going to tell me about the plot? I look for patterns and different things that maybe repeat, or figurative language that's used. That just details are important here, and they're details that reinforce the thesis that you're arguing, and that your interpretation of this work maybe shows it in a new light. So, and really, it's better to think in terms of interesting questions than right answers, always. So, like, just ask yourself, could this detail be significant? What other details go with that might strengthen that argument that it is there for a reason, and that it's doing something that you can argue that it's doing? What do they add up to? How do they help the reader kind of understand the context of the story? All that kind of stuff. A couple of questions here. Oh wait, so sorry. Where's your evidence coming from? I think that was in the videos, but I'll say again, there are details from the story that back up your argument. Usually it's verbatim text from the story. I think it's moments that you can cite within a text for sure. So, avoid overarching blankets kind of statements. It's actually better, I think, to use more verbatim text and then take it out as you're revising, because that verbatim text anchors you to that point in the story where that is. So you're using it as evidence of something, and you're pointing to this specific place so that the reader can follow that. That sort of keeps you honest as far as being specific and not, just since the beginning of time kind of blanket statements. So some example questions you might ask. One is just, is the title significant? Like I'm thinking about Harrison Bergeron, and could you make something out of the fact that that name is a title given everything else that's going on in that work, and the society that short story represents? Is it interesting? A lot of times you see something that's a little unexpected, and that can be cool. What does the telltale part of Telltale Heart really mean in the context of the whole? Like maybe sometimes you hear that's a really famous story by Poe, and so sometimes you just kind of hear that as a blanket. But what is a telltale kind of thing? Maybe that's something to think about. Another really interesting thing in several of this is the narrators, the people who are telling you the story and giving you information. So you could start kind of tracing, what do we know about these people? What details in the story tell us these things about these people? Like what, there are usually clues there about things like their beliefs, their state of mind, the historical or social context. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Consider their ethos too, like how credible or trustworthy are they? Given can we believe their version of the story? And why or why not? So it's really tempting to take stories at face value, but if just, you've been told, if the author says this, then that must have been what they meant. But when you start really delving into literature, sometimes things aren't always what they seem. I don't mean to say that, roses symbolize X always and that kind of thing. You shouldn't dig that deep. But I think with at least two of these stories, the narrators, there's some problems with the way that person is telling the story. And sometimes it's really interesting to read between the lines. I think it's especially true in the yellow wallpaper. When you start looking at what she's saying and then what she's doing and what's happening, those don't all match up to the same story. And it's really interesting sometimes when they tell you something in one place and then they contradict it somewhere else. But you got to be paying attention for that. And so in that case, I guess a graphic organizer where you're tracing that kind of stuff can be helpful. But as I said, the plot one particularly doesn't really lend itself to that. So anyway, what else? Some people have talked about the narrators as being like they and the author are one end of the same. And that's not really a convention that we hold to in literary analysis. Just because I write a story with aliens or, serial killers does not make me one. So be very careful to distinguish between what the author is doing as they're writing the story and what the narrator or the characters in the story are doing and saying. And, call it the narrator if you don't have a name for that person. So anyway, I hope that's a little bit helpful. A lot of this I've said on the feedback that I've already given you, but I may not get to all of it, so I wanted to get this out here today. For the essay conferences, I still have some people who haven't managed to connect with me yet on that. Just please don't send me emails to schedule. Then we have to go back and forth, and just use the bookings link that's in the course. So far, only one person has not been able to do that, and Ms. Lewis scheduled for them. So if you really can't get the bookings link to work after you click on it or after Ms. Lewis shows you where it is in the course, because it's in there, then just ask her to schedule on your behalf and ask her to put your name in the comments. I will then, send you the calendar invite, and I'll tell you what time it's scheduled for in case, your calendar is, in Pacific time or something, if you like that. In the future, just don't take forever to schedule these because you're online. I cannot chase you. And my knees are so bad I can't chase anyone anyway. So just don't take forever to do these. I'd rather get through them. And I think everyone who's had them, they haven't been painful, I hope. For most people, maybe, I hope for everyone. But, ask your classmates if you're a little anxious about it. But really, I'm not that scary. I can tell you that usually I have Friday mornings open, like I just have open office hours. People can drop in. The next, this Friday and Friday, March the 1st, I will not be available that way because I'll be at state conferences. But usually I just go into basically, my online office space and I'm just in there. And if someone comes in, that's awesome. So if you have questions and you want a quick answer, that can be a way. I can easily get online on Monday and Wednesday mornings. Or really Monday and Wednesday most of the day. You may have little children who want to talk to you during that conference, but I can answer your questions, and Papa can run interference if he needs to. Most Tuesday and Thursday afternoons I'm here in this office, so from about 12:30 to 3:30 I can be available then too. But anyway, hopefully that gives you some ideas about when. I mean, I can do some things in the evenings, but it's not as easy to do. Sometimes I forget. So definitely if you schedule with me, set an alarm for yourself. That's what I have to do. But anyway, I think I'm rambling now. So I'm looking forward to the literary analysis essays that are coming in. And, think about the fact that this could just be a draft and you could do some revision, and you might need to, and that'd be cool too. Be really careful to make sure that you cite stuff and that you have a works cited page. There should be no reason now why works cited pages are sources or references or whatever else you've got. Make sure that it's correct MLA, because I will ding you pretty hard for that. But I guess other than that, I'll look forward to talking to you later. Thanks.